Episode 121, Joel Fleischman Happy Hour Podcast. Sorry, we're off to a good start here. We have Jake Young, Operations Excellence Leader, and Clint Patton, Sales Leader here at Drexel. Cheers, guys. I guess you guys already broke the rules. I didn't tell you we were supposed to wait to crack those, but
cheers.
We're already going at it here. So cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining. So we got Jake and Clint. Just going to kind of go on background, what you guys did prior to Drexel, how you've grown at Drexel, what you guys kind of look for in terms of nuggets to help better yourselves all the time. So I guess to start off, we'll start with the veteran, the old veteran.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Appreciate that.
In the room, Clint, what were you doing prior to Drexel?
So prior to Drexel, I worked actually at Menards. I started there in 04, 05, something like that. Started in the yard, stacking lumber, pulling deliveries, loading trucks, unloading cabinet trucks, you name it, all things yard. Then you worked your way up to being the delivery puller. Then I worked myself into receiving and then went into management, managed the yard, managed the building materials department, and then I went into outside sales after that. And then somewhere along the line in outside sales, I actually ran into CJ on a job site. I was selling for Menards, and CJ was selling for Drexel. His truck was there. I said, well, screw that, I'm pulling in. He thought he had the sale. I went in and swooped half the sale from him and took off, so he was pretty pissed off at me about that.
How many times have you brought that story up to him?
Oh, I usually save it for when the time is right. You know, when I just need to get a little edge over CJ, I usually bring that up. Yeah, I told him that, I got the edge over you, CJ, so it's all good.
So Menards, that was 04 till roughly what time before you joined Drexel?
I started here in 2013.
Okay, and it sounds like obviously at Menards you did basically everything.
Just about everything from the yard through management, and then ran in the contractor desk with them in outside sales, yeah. And
then how did you get connected to, I guess, obviously you saw Drexel as you just kind of gave up an example here, but how did you get connected to Drexel?
I really enjoyed the relationship with builders and building that bond and understanding their business and understanding how the way they like things and how they wanted to do things, how they built. And I just realized that I think I wanted to go and do outside sales in like what I would call professional industry. Menards was a little bit, we had some builders, but I wouldn't call it, super professional. And Drexel was an opportunity. I did some research and I just reached out to Drexel at the time, called and said I would like an opportunity to interview.
Who'd you call?
Actually, I called Doug Carlson.
Okay.
He was here. And then I met in Berlin to meet with CJ and Doug because I had a non-compete from Menards.
Sure.
And then interviewed with them. And then a couple weeks later, I interviewed with Craig and Joel. And ironically enough, I remember this story. Joel was sitting across the table and we were interviewing and he was kind of not paying attention. He was typing on his computer and I'm sitting there going, I wonder what the hell he's doing right now. And he looked up and he's like, well, I'm not doing fantasy football or anything right now. I'm typing up your offer. And I'm like, well, I guess this must be going good. So I walked out of there with an offer and started a couple weeks later.
Nice. Awesome. And Jake Young, you started here when you were 7.5. Is that?
Not quite.
Not quite. Not quite.
16. Started actually working for Albert on the side for cash. We were cutting wood, planting trees. We kind of did everything and anything at his house back when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. Started there. My real first W-2 came from Paul's Auction in Kewaskum. Was like I think they call it a call boy. So worked there with Mike Paul for quite a while, up until I was probably 18, 19 years old. That was a really good start, but started basically part-time after working with Albert for all those years at 16. And basically same thing there. Went on a lot of two-man deliveries, cleaning lumber bins, flipping piles, stacking loads. Couldn't drive a forklift, obviously, till I was 18 years old. So once that hit, then I was still kind of working part-time. Tried the whole college for a little bit. That didn't pan out. Luckily enough, it worked, landed on my feet here yet. And by the time I turned, I think it was about 19 is when I went full-time. Still worked in the yard at that time. It was in Campbell Sport. It was Campbell Sport Building Supply. There was, we only had probably maybe 10 guys total out in the yard. And there was 4 of us. There was only 4 forklifts. So we were kind of doing everything. Anybody really unloaded, pulled, delivered, and went from there to, I was EB's assistant when EB would go on his muskie trips and motorcycle trips.
Go buy him cigarettes?
Nope, never bought him cigarettes. Did that, and then basically became dispatcher. All the years kind of blend together,
Sure.
but became head dispatcher for Camel Sport for a few years, and then yard leader down there. Did that for about 4 or 5 years as a yard leader. Once when Camel Sport yard was about $100 million yard, we had like 45 guys out there total when that yard was really cranking before the expansion in Columbus and in New Berlin, or at that time was Brookfield, but so we were really humping a lot of loads out of there. And then from there, it was probably only going back about 5 years, took the defensive coordinator role inside and worked alongside Nick Whitty and Dan Hall. And then from that position was the job coordinator leader for a while there. That took me into the sales operations leader, and then also did that for a couple of years, or 1 year. And then as of probably the past year was the operations excellent leader. So
Do you feel like you have held more titles at Drexel than anybody else?
close.
Yeah. I'd love to.
Close.
You got to be
Yeah.
top of the list.
Yeah.
I'd
I mean,
love
when I
LOL was one of them.
yeah, LOL was
I like
what was
one.
that again?
Leader of leaders.
Yeah, leader of leaders, which was still kind of, it was all the product leaders. So then I led over the leaders out. Yeah, that was a good one.
Do we get business cards for every single change?
No.
For you? Okay.
No, I think I only
We might not be here right now. We might be belly
Yeah,
out. Because
yeah.
Changed before we had time to room.
Yeah, I think the last business cards was defensive coordinator and sales operations leader, which I still got.
So what did, obviously you're talking about those early days of the yard where you're talking like, less than 15, 20 some guys in the yard to having 40 some guys in the yard. What, did anything change in terms of challenges, or was it always just the same, just at a higher level because there was more people and more deliveries and more product and more everything?
I'd say it was quite a bit the same. It's just turned into more people. Our deliveries area probably grew more and more as we grew more and more. The Madison market, further into Milwaukee market, it just kind of kept growing there. And as we grew, the yard had to grow. More forklifts, more trucks, more bodies. So there really was. It always was the same Drexel mentality. If we could do it, we would. Supply happiness. That was even though we didn't say it back then, that was still our motto. And I probably got a lot of that from EB, Albert, Joel. If we could do it, we were going to do it. We worked a lot of hours back then, similar probably to Menards. I mean, there
Same
was
year when we started. 2013. There was
Yeah.
only 3 yards. We were just opening Wrightstown. Columbus wasn't there. We had Drexel in Brookfield, but there was maybe 120 of us
Yep.
at that time. There was maybe 20, 25-ish salespeople at that point.
Yep.
So a lot has changed. A lot has grown. I mean, it's really been amazing to watch
Yeah.
over the last 11, 12 years.
Yep.
I think we'd be remiss having you guys on the podcast if we didn't ask to maybe share the story about how you're Albert's favorite son that he never had.
Yeah, he is Albert's son that he never had. Absolutely.
I mean,
Similar.
Joel has even proclaimed that, so I
Yeah.
feel safe telling that story in his own podcast. But can you dive into a little more? You were talking obviously about helping Albert on the side as a young
Yep.
kid and things like that, but just what kind of that relationship grew, and even to this day, obviously it feels probably like family seeing Albert around, right?
Yeah. Well, it technically is family. Albert and my mom are cousins. So I don't know where the connection or how it all started, but either my parents would drop me off or Albert would pick me up and we would start cutting wood and planting trees, and that's kind of how it all started. He obviously had a thing for planting trees and cutting wood, so I would go over there. Still on the side, I obviously got paid for that, but I would do exactly the same thing for my dad and wouldn't get paid. So it was, I don't know.
It was a good trade.
Yeah, it was a good trade. I'll go do that any day and I'm getting paid for it than having to work at home. So, but yeah, we'd do that for a couple hours Saturday, Sunday, and Joni would always make us, at that day, Albert would laugh at it, but gut bombs. Either Joni was running to get McDonald's or she was making something on the grill, and it was perfect, and spent a couple hours doing that. And apparently I was a much harder worker than Joel was at that age, so that's where that saying became, and I was the long lost brother that Albert or long lost son that Albert always wanted.
Do you want to say that one more time about Joel? You were
What's that? Better worker? At that age.
At that age. All
Cutting,
right.
but cup of tea, passionate talent. So.
For sure.
You're a hell of a woodcutter, huh?
Yeah. Cut wood, plant trees.
So both of you guys are kind of wired, I think, the same way as there's a lot of people around here, but obviously different experiences where you literally grew up at Drexel.
Yep.
You obviously as kind of a competitor, right, in the Menards world at, understanding that kind of lifestyle, but what has it been since coming to Drexel that both you guys kind of take on more? I mean, again, there's some people right in this world that are very comfortable just doing what they do, as Joel's talked about that and how people, at some places just like sitting in the corner doing their job. 25, 30 years, I think that's not as much the same as it used to be, especially the world. There's so many more opportunities and different things that change. But some people just like being left alone and doing their own thing. So I guess from your guys' standpoint, what's always kind of brought on that I'm willing to take this on? Like, I know it's going to be a lot. I know I might get crazy. I might be stressed out, but I'm willing to go and kind of fight for it for myself, but also for Drexel. I guess start with Clint.
For me, it's about the wins and losses that I've learned and experienced over the years, and then being able to help other people with it. I was here for 10 years on the road selling large-scale commercial, heavy commercial jobs, multifamily, running a pretty good book of business. I ran that business as good as I could for the builders and really learned a lot about builders, what they like, what they don't like, and I learned to have a vision of the builder. I really think that's what we need to do as quarterbacks. We have to be able to understand the way the builder thinks and also think for them at times when they're super busy. Like, I think that goes unnoticed at times, that they need our help. And I think once I kind of figured that out, I realized, like, I actually want to help other people do this. I think it would be selfish to just do it for myself for the rest of my career. I wanted to expand that vision and be able to give people kind of the same impact that I had with the builders. And so it was kind of a natural progression to be like, I think it's time for me to move up into leadership and to be able to help the team because of the experiences that I have.
So like going from Model 1 to Model 2, and you talking about, obviously I know LSP clients, I think Tom Merrifield took some of yours and whatnot. What was that transition like? Because I know, obviously as you, like, you want to take care of them, you want to do a really good job, but what was that like, giving that up and being like, hey, I'm going to go give this to the next person to be able to take care of?
I think when you make transitions within a business, you have to understand if you're all in or you're not. And personally, you have to make that decision. I'm all in with what we're doing because I truly care about these people and I truly care about the path that the company's on. Mm-hmm. So it's actually pretty easy to make the transition because it was the right thing to do. Like Tom Merrifield and the Dells, I wasn't getting down there a lot. And I had to be honest with myself and my own ego about that and go down there and have an open and honest conversation with them. And they were great about it. No different than when I transferred off all the accounts, right? That was really hard to do. That was 20 years of work that you kind of jump off the cliff into leadership and you're like, hey, I'm going to take this chance, but all your protection and whatever, but you know it's the right thing to do, you just go for it.
What about, you're talking about vision of the builder. How is that different from builder to builder? Or is it similar? Like, I mean, is there a lot of builders that are looking for different things in terms of just how they manage their book of business, what they expect from us? Or if you're a quarterback and you have X amount of accounts, can you pretty much say consistently, all my builders expect the same thing out of me?
I mean, I think there's differences between them, but they're all looking for an advantage. They're looking for somebody that thinks like them, thinks out in front of them, and has their best interest in mind. You know, it really comes down to that. Do I actually care that they're profitable and their projects go well for their homeowners? And when you put yourself in their shoes, the picture becomes a lot clearer. It's not about I'm supplying material to a builder. I'm actually taking this project from start to finish right alongside of them.
Is there any way, within all of our different markets throughout the state, does that vary at all?
I don't think so. I think you just got to put yourself in the builder's shoes and take care of them.
Sure. Jake, how about you growing? Obviously, again, we talked about all your different roles and whatnot here. What has always allowed you to be like, okay, going from in the yard to EB's assistant to dispatcher to yard leader to sales operation, all the things over the years? What has allowed you to just be like, because again, your mentality, very similar to Clint's, like, it's very impressive where it's just like, I'm on to the next thing. You always are very task management focused, but you still obviously have a personality as well too. But it's like nothing seems to really rock your boat. So how do you just kind of keep at things and always willing to take more on?
Yeah. I think I strive the best in chaos, which being a dispatcher, being a yard leader, it was always, at that time, it was chaos and hectic. It still kind of is. And that was just kind of always something that the busier it was or the more chaos it was, I could stay cool, calm, collective, and just always think of...
Almost more efficient, you kind of felt you were.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. What's our next best move? And that just came to me really quickly. And in moving from role to role, it just, you get into different things and able to take on more and be able to understand what the team needs, what the team needs, and like Clint had said, what the builder needs. In all the years of operations, you know, I got to learn a lot what the builder needs firsthand in the deliveries, like when do they need it by, where do we got to take it, all those things that we learn, pulling loads, making deliveries, even the phone calls you take as a dispatcher, like what they absolutely need to take that now into leading all the department leaders and the store leaders. And it kind of all goes hand in hand at this point. It's still chaotic, which is great, and you just strive for, okay, what's the next best thing, one thing at a time. And just there was a point of me, just it was always, I wanted to do more, and obviously we got to make sure we're watching ourselves and not taking on too many monkeys. But there was a point that in moving from position to position, you know, you got really good at it, and you felt really good, confident, comfortable. It's like it's time to get uncomfortable again, and that was the big, for me, that was the big jump, going from yard leader to defensive coordinator. I had to get really uncomfortable. Like, you know, I came to work every day, jeans and a sweatshirt. That was changing. Like, I wasn't going to be able to be defensive coordinator, be what I am now. Still get to wear a hat every day, but which is great and thankful for that. So please don't take that away, Joel. Yeah, I mean,
and I think certain people just thrive in the fire. Like,
yeah.
I would prefer it, the hotter, like the better.
Yep.
I think you just got to slow things down, go back to the basics, and like just think, like detach from the situation and be able to be like, it's better for me when the more stressful, the more intense, like the more I'm like, okay, this is more my style. Now I just need to think clearer. And some people are really good at that. Some people, like when the fire gets hot, they're like, this isn't quite for me. Yeah. Like, I've always just gravitated towards that, whether it's sports or whether it's business or leadership. Like, I think that's when people really show their true colors and how you react to things and how you take care of people.
I think it's really true, but how do you guys, I mean, have you ever got to, and it could be Menards, it could have been before Drexel, have you ever got to a breaking point where you're like, there's too many eggs in my basket and I literally can't anymore? I mean, there's had to been a point where you're like, you've pushed the limit where you're like, I gotta step back a little bit here. Or maybe not. Maybe you guys just literally can handle it that way.
I think you just get realistic about prioritizing what's most important.
I was going to say,
like, I really, really think it's not about whether or not I'm going to break. It's just there are certain things that are priority right now, and and that constantly shuffles based on what's going on.
Sure.
Like, I don't ever look at it like I'm going to break or not break. It's just the priorities reshuffle based on what happens, and that can change by the minute, the hour, or the day. Yeah. And if it changes, it changes, and you just got to be comfortable with that it's like, okay, I guess we're going this way now.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess we should have pointed out at the start, out of, again, 800 team members here, these are probably the two guys that if they did have their hats off, you guys wouldn't have known who they were. So I would have had to definitely introduce who they were. I guess, you know, how do you guys get better on a day-to-day? Clint, I know you and I have talked a lot about this, you know, not on the podcast, obviously, but is there anything you guys look to read, to listen to whatever, just, I mean, it could be anything, right? Reflect on, I guess, you know, a lot of things I think we can just reflect on in life and learn from mistakes we made or things that we did well. But what do you guys do in terms of getting better? Jake, I guess start with you. Is there anything that jumps to mind where you're like, I really looked for this, or really follow this person, or whatever that may be?
Yeah, the books, I guess the first thing that I do is, I got to say, I feel like I'm a really good listener, whether it's listening at the pep rallies, listening to Joel, even the individual team members. I feel like if I can listen really good and I understand what's going on, it allows me to make a really, really good decision of what we need to do for the team or that department or whatever we have going on there. I have read some books. I got 3 boys right now who are just active in sports, so it is hard to sit down and read books, but there is motivational this and that I read at one point. I do want to read more. I know Clint probably reads a lot more than I do. Follow inspirational things, this and that you can just kind of clear your brain every once in a while and just keep you on the right path. But I just try to, in a lot of the things as we go through our day, listen around what's going around you, and I pick up on stuff, what Clint's reading, what Joel's reading, what a bunch of other people are reading, and try to read little bits and pieces of those items. But I haven't really gotten too much into that, just where my kids are at with their age and how busy they are. But
for sure,
I mean, finding your why, right? We have 800 team members, close to, that depend on us on a daily basis, and I think they depend on me on a daily basis to be at my best. That means I might have to put a little extra work in, whether it's reading or podcast or research or, I do a lot of business podcasts that I follow, like try to self-improve. Also have 3 boys at home, have to be a role model there. Yep. So, I think it's really important when you understand your why and there's people that are counting on you, it's really easy to put in the work.
Yeah.
For both of you, talk about kind of the work-life balance and how that's changed, and maybe it hasn't changed a ton, right? Like I know obviously going from Model 1 to Model 2 and COVID and a lot of different things have changed kind of Drexel's outlook on things, but as you guys talk about with having the kids and being involved in a lot of different activities, how do you guys find that time to unplug, right? Because if it's like you're working like crazy, you're taking on all these monkeys, you're running around to different baseball events or whatever with family, how do you take that time to just be present for your family, but also for yourself, where it's like, I just need some time to just unwind a little bit here too?
Yeah, for me, my wife is great. I'll be perfectly honest. She knows when I'm wound tight, she's like, you just need a little bit of time to decompress. She knows it. Sometimes I got to say, hey, I just need a few minutes here. But we are constantly running around with the boys. They do basketball, baseball, football year round. I coached baseball 2 travel teams last year, and I coached football last year. So from basically April till October, I was on the go pretty much every night of the week. She holds the family together. She really, really does. Like, she schedules that stuff, and she knows put it in my calendar and I'll be there. If it's not in the calendar, I'm probably not going to be there. So we got that communication going on for a while there. She's like, why do I have to put it in your calendar? I'm like, if you want me there, put it in my calendar and I'll be there. So that, honestly, having that support, like, she takes on a big piece of that at home to get the boys going. And then I just do what I can to help coach them and help lead them and be a role model for them.
Yeah. Sure. Jake?
Yeah, same for me. Huge support at home. With the boys, just trying to be a role model, set really good examples. Without her for a lot of stuff, same thing. The calendar is huge. I coach both my boys' baseball teams, coaching football. We're constantly on the go. I don't even know how many nights a week it is, but it's a lot. When we get to summer, you go 14, 15 straight days where you're at a ball diamond. It's perfect for me to unwind. That's where I need to be sometimes, is on a ball diamond. It's just that's kind of it's my passion. And that it's funny because even going back to kind of that chaotic, hectic stuff, coaching youth sports is exactly what that is too. And when you have that for certain age levels, I think it gets better as they get a little bit older, but it's the same thing. And you're building a team, you're growing those kids. It's fundamentals. How do they talk to umpires? How do they talk to their own parents? It's the same thing here at work. Just having those kids, if we gotta unwind, we go to the diamond on Saturdays, even if we don't have baseball, it's like, hey, let's go hit a bucket of balls. Mm-hmm. So we go out there, we do that, can step away. That's really how we do that.
Sure.
Yeah, coaching the kids is a great way to unwind, like Jake said, but it's also a great perspective on leadership when you're teaching kids that are 10, 12, 13, 14 year old, and they're a hell of a lot of fun too. There's some things that happen during those that probably aren't for this podcast, but they're pretty funny kids. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. You're like, where did you hear that?
Mm-hmm. Have either of you ever got thrown out of a game you were coaching?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I've thrown a lot of darts, but never been kicked out.
I leave that for my assistant coaches. They get pretty wild up, but I stay.
I'm pretty savvy about it. When I'm walking by the umpire after I'm coaching third, it's usually under my breath, right? But he's like, who's that? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, we're good. I didn't say nothing.
I didn't think either of you would, but if I had to pick one, I would have picked Clint.
I'm pretty. Yeah.
Did you ever get thrown out of a game when you were playing?
I did. Playing baseball, I ran over the catcher one time and got kicked out of the game.
Like collision at home plate?
Yeah, it was his fault. He came up the line to catch the ball. He's in my way. What am I supposed to do?
Was that at high school, JUCO?
No, that was like right before high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think my mom made me go to the hospital and apologize to him or something like
really?
that. Yeah,
you got him good. It
was a pretty bad one. Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Life lesson.
Yeah. Next time you should move.
Shouldn't be blocking the plate.
So I guess again, we're talking youth sports, baseball. What have you seen from youth sports that maybe isn't so great for your kids? Not necessarily with your kids, but just what you've seen from the youth sports and traveling to different events and things like that. Is there anything? I know Joel and I have talked about youth sports a lot on here, and I have a lot of issues with youth sports in a lot of different ways. A lot of it comes from more the club side, but again, just to have kids at such a young age that every sport wants them. Every parent feels like if I don't get them in by 4 in a T-ball, they're going to miss out on everything. Like, is there any bad things, or have you guys maybe seen it from a different lens because you've been coaching so much and you see more of a positive impact as opposed to a negative?
It's about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you. It's not about the coach. It's not about the parent. It's not about the fans. You're doing it for the kid. Like, and when you remember that, there's some parents and some coaches that do some pretty bad stuff out there, and it's just like, what are we doing here? What example are we setting for these kids? And these are the kids of our future. Like, it's about them. Let's get them out there having fun, challenging themselves, trying something new, learning how to fail, right? Baseball is a game of failure. How do you learn how to do that with a positive role model, not somebody standing over your shoulder screaming at you, or the parent screaming, or the umpire screaming at the umpire? It's like, what kind of role model are we being for our kids?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen some, and it's not even club, like football. I don't think you'd see that's being club, but there is some, but it's pushed from mainly the parents with high expectations. Like, you really got to go in with no expectations. It still is, at this age, at least where my kids are, it still is fundamentals. Where they are right now, in 4 or 5 years, it's going to be completely different. And where they could be can be completely different, or they can keep building on it. So the push of a lot of the parents that you see, and even the outside influence that those kids get, like, it's going to change in a whole lot of years. But right now, as long as they're having fun, yeah, they need direction and some pressure at times, which is good, and that's what we can, as good role models, and show them that. But some of the outside pressure, that's probably, whether it's club or rec or whatever you want to call it, I think it's in both sports. I haven't seen it where it's bad or worse in club versus in anything else, but the outside pressure of just trying to be who they're not is probably the biggest factor.
Yeah, I always said too, and I think it's kind of a detriment at times, where it's like you might have a small town kid in Campbellsport who's playing Division I baseball, or you have a Braylon Allen, right, who is from Fond du Lac, and kids in that community are playing those sports and see that, which is awesome, right? That's great. But also those kids, I think, and more so those parents, are like, well, youth football, Braylon did this, and and we live right down the road from him. And it's all of a sudden like these things become, and it's like, your kid's not him, right? He's a physical specimen, or he puts so much more time that none of you are ever going to see, but they just think because of similarities that match up, like, oh, this could happen to Max, or
But it doesn't always correlate. You got kids that on our 10U team batted fourth, and now that the kids are in high school, they don't make the high school team, and vice versa. The kid that batted ninth now is a leadoff hitter, or he's batting third, and he's got the most power on the team. So it's like, you kind of never know how that's going to shake out. But parents always think their child's the best. They're going to be in the pros, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. We just coach them up.
For sure.
Yeah, they can dream big, but if they're pushed too hard, a lot of times they get burned out too. Like, you can't burn them out. You got to take some days off. Even yesterday, like, my kids at basketball practice, we skipped it.
Which is okay.
It's okay. Like, we were chasing how many days in a row? It's like, we were skipping it. Kids were okay with it. Then they're, again, passion and talent meets. They have a lot of passion for it, but talent's not right there. But they're just, I don't also want to burn them out. So that's a big thing there. Like, we skipped it, had a great night, went for a walk with the family, which was awesome. So
recharge the batteries.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess to finish up, obviously, famous billboard question. Hopefully you guys were...
We didn't get to ask Marcus any questions.
Yeah.
What do you want to ask me?
Did you ever coach?
We're at 28 minutes.
Did you ever coach?
I never coached.
I thought you did.
I did. I coached college basketball for 12 years, and I coached college tennis for 4.5, men's and women's, which I knew nothing about, which we don't have enough time in the podcast to talk about coaching a college sport you know nothing about. Yeah, men's and women's. Otter was my assistant. So
no kid, no.
Yep. So, but college basketball for 12 years, and yeah, I mean, obviously, same thing like you guys. It's no different. It doesn't matter the sport or the level, right? When you coach any type of kid and get them from point A to point B and see them improve is obviously why you do it. But also a lot of frustrations too, where maybe you have kids, like you just mentioned, right? The kid who's on the 9U team and he's batting cleanup and he's done by 8th grade. Whether that's a burnout thing or he got down a different path with different people, and where it's like same thing happened in college, right? You bring in kids who had a good high school career, but again, because of certain circumstances, whether it was academics or life at home or whatever it is, right? And all of a sudden you're like, but I would say the cream rises to the top, which is why you say the kid who's batting 9 in the order, all of a sudden senior year is leading off. It's like, actually I have a neighbor kid right now who's a youth, probably would be playing 9 or 10U baseball, and his dad's told me, like, he's not talented enough. He's like, the passion's through the roof. And I'm like, well, just have him, like, just keep at it. Because there are going to be kids over the years that just fall away slowly because of all different things that are currently better. But, you know, and it's one of those things that I would be interested in hearing your guys' thoughts too, of like, I think you either have that as a kid where you're so driven, like you can coach it and you can teach it and you can drag them to the gym or to the field or whatever. But to me, it's like you got to have that or you don't.
Yep.
Would you guys disagree? Or
you got to have the passion to want to put in the work and want to be great.
Yeah.
Like I always tell my boys, there's about 100 things you could be doing right now. What is the outcome you're looking for? Mm-hmm. Like you can't look at the outcome. You have to look at the work you put in. You got to be accountable to what you're doing today, not what the outcome is. Are you doing soft toss? Are you hitting off the tee? Mm-hmm. Are you throwing a football? Like what work are you putting in? Are you working out? Are you staying in shape? Are you exercising your thumbs playing video games? Like what outcome do you actually want? And then what work are you putting in? And I challenge my boys all the time with that. I would just walk by and be like, what are you trying to get out of today? And they would just be like, oh, Dad.
How different though with both of your kids with having the boys? How different is it from the older one to the younger ones? Because obviously the younger ones see the older one, right? And they want to be able to match him and everything. That's obviously for every family. But how is that older one, like, I guess, setting the bar? Or do you feel like it's the younger ones that are more so chasing that one to be better than him?
They're all so different.
Yeah. Are they?
They're all different. Like, they're all great athletes. Some of them have the swagger and confidence. Some of them are great but don't know they're great, and then some of them are just even keel. Like my oldest is really, really, really good at baseball. He's really good at football. Sometimes he doesn't think he's that good.
Sure.
My youngest, he's kind of like the wild card. He just whatever, give him a ball, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go beat whoever. I'll play the older kids. And then my middle one's just even keel. Like I've had coaches say, does he even like baseball? He loves it. Like he's got that mentality where he's just like, yeah, whatever, this is what we're doing. So they're all different in different ways, but my boys are great at sports, so it's pretty easy in that regard. It's just about building that work ethic for them.
Sure.
Yeah. Same with mine. I mean, they're all different. My youngest isn't really into anything, so he's 5 right now, but he is, when he's at the Diamond or football game, he's like the life of the stadium, the crowd, whatever. He's running around, but he definitely tries to follow around and beat him up and do whatever he can to involve himself in any of the sports that's going on, whether it be baseball, football. He's trying to tackle the oldest one. Same thing, the oldest one for me is probably has the least amount of confidence, but he's really, really good at stuff, and it's just he's got to build his own confidence. Middle one is even keel, knows where he wants to go, knows what he needs to do. He puts in the work. He puts it in quietly. We got a net at home, and we'll be upstairs. All of a sudden, you'll hear we got a tee down there, and all of a sudden you'll just hear ting ting. And he's down there by himself.
You know which one it is.
You know which one it is.
Yeah.
He's down there just putting in the work, and never really had to tell him like, hey, you should go hit on the tee. You should go do this. Like all of a sudden, it's just he's doing it.
Sure.
So yeah, and they're all different and bring a different level, and
interesting.
But it's fun.
Very cool. All right, so billboard. You got one billboard. It's on Highway 41. Everybody in the world will see it. What's it say and why? Could be, again, anything, work-related, family-related, a book you read with a quote, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple, I guess. Work your ass off to be a better version of yourself every day. Serve others and have faith that it's all going to work out.
Where's that come from?
A lot of books that I've been reading right now, I've been on the Burn Your Goals book, and there's a good portion of that. And just being accountable and like not being afraid to work your ass off and knowing what you're working for. But then also, it's not always about you, it's about others. And then sometimes it's some good old faith that gets you through the day.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Very well thought out. Awesome, Clint. Jake.
Yeah. I used this one last time, but it's still something I live on. We have signs in our house in the kids' bedroom. Babe Ruth, don't let the fear of striking out get in the way. So, just like playing baseball or anything else, and I've used that at work. Like, sometimes you got to take a swing. If you don't swing at all, you don't know if you're going to hit the ball or not. So It's really, even at work, sometimes you just got to try stuff and change, and, we change on the fly. That's one of them. Like, you got to swing the bat. You got to be ready at all times when you're up there. So, I know I used that one last time, but...
Did you come up with a new one from last time?
From a week ago?
Yeah, from a week ago.
Do you have one every single different time?
No. They asked last time.
Todd
so
asked me.
Back.
Todd Flitter, probably my favorite Drexel team member now, for asking that. I'm just kidding. No, actually, I'm being serious, Todd. Not kidding. No, I don't know. if I get a new pair of teeth because I got a new crown put on today.
You did have a root canal today or something.
No, I didn't have a root canal. Just a new crown put on.
New crown?
Old crown ripped off.
You were in rough shape this morning.
Still in rough shape. That's why we're out of here, folks. 121. See ya.
Later.